The world is changing.
No, it's my money. It's my money, all right? Dump it.
The marketplace is demanding more from business. The customer is demanding more satisfaction. The investor is demanding a higher return on his money. The employee wants more from his job.
There has got to be a better way.
Joe Scanlon, a steel worker and member of the union, thought there was a better way. His early concept of cooperation led to the 4 principles that are the basis of the Scanlon Plan as practiced today: identity, participation, equity, and competence. The Scanlon Plan is a way for a company to work as a unit so that everyone can realize the full potential of that company. To be successful, at least 90% of the employees must vote to adopt the Scanlon Plan before it can stand a chance of surviving inside the company. That's commitment. This is Herman Miller. The Scanlon Plan has been at work here since 1950. It has helped this company to be recognized by Fortune magazine as one of the 10 most admired companies in America.
There's one more that goes up there, and we'll start with that one, and that is...
It's critical for people to identify with the company in order for people to participate. And in order to identify, people have to understand the company. Communication is essential for identity, and we go out of our way to make sure that people at Herman Miller understand the key strategies, understand the key opportunities and the key problems. It's essential for people to understand the company in order for them to participate. An illustration of that, or an example of that, would be in 1983 at a Scanlon information meeting. Ed Simon, who was then the chief financial officer, got up and explained to the company, to the people, that we had a $1.5 million problem. And he explained the problem in great detail. Then someone at the back of the room, and I believe it was Terry Vanderwater, got up and said, "Ed, what can we do about the problem?" And after some thought, Ed said, "Come up with $1.5 million in cost savings and expense controls." In 30 days, people brought back $2 million in cost savings and expense controls. Now that's phenomenal. And without identity, without the Scanlon Plan, without the opportunity to participate, people couldn't do that.
I like to have all the information I can get. For example, what the financial status of the company is right now. For example, accounts receivable. That information in turn helps me make a lot of my decisions on an everyday basis, what to run next or what to run the next day. In turn, it gives me a sense of pride that the company has enough confidence and trust in me that they'll pass that information on to me. It makes me feel real important.
At Herman Miller, every employee is a member of a work team. At these meetings, everyone participates by exchanging ideas. These sessions help stimulate the group to solve everyday problems or complex business situations. They help everyone do their jobs better. No idea is too trivial.
It's better to cooperate with each other than to be number one. Scanlon is a nature philosophy. Look at animal and plant, how they work together, interact with each other for the benefit of both. I'm pretty sure the oak tree, it doesn't matter how strong its root is, without the support from the plants and bushes around it, it's going to be uprooted when the storm comes. Like the oak tree, the strong leader, doesn't matter how skillful he is, stand alone, he's going to crack. But with the support from his work team member, he's going to stand strong through the storm.
Everybody at Herman Miller, whether it's a janitor out on the floor, whether it's a chief executive officer, has a moral obligation to deal with change. If it's something that's got to be identified to your work team leader, a few phone calls you've got to make, regardless. Everybody at Herman Miller has a responsibility to make and influence change.
Well, one of the things Herman Miller has done for me is taken a personal interest in me. Remember, 10 years ago, my work team leader came up to me and said, "Pat," he said, "I think you've got some potential. I'd like to see you take some classes to further your education." So I took some seminars, and since then I've taken different educational classes, and at the time they were unrelated to my job, but now I'm a production coordinator and I use the things I learned in these classes every day. Wythe Herman Miller made an investment in me several years ago, and now they're getting a return for that investment.
Employees feel a real sense of ownership. Customer satisfaction and satisfied investors become the focus. Let's face it, with no investors or customers, Firestone built this plant in the early 70s. The company felt it had a new lease on life, so it decided to try participative management at this new site. They chose the Scanlon plant. It is the only Firestone plant that currently uses the plant.
Well, it's very important that we compete with the other Firestone plants, but our main competition are the other companies, both domestic and offshore competition. And it's no longer good enough to do business like we used to. It's very important that we push responsibility down to the lowest level in our organization. And we've been able to use the Scanlon process to help us do that. It's important that our employees be given the opportunity and the responsibility to influence the decision-making process in our plant. Management still has to make the final decision, but only after using all the inputs from the employees. And employee participation is key.
Management must provide leadership. It must be open to influence and create a climate to succeed.
Well, competition has changed a whole lot from what it was when we first started working out here. When we first started working out here, we were competing to try and see how much of the tire market we could get. But today, it's a matter of trying to survive.
Sound like a typical worker? Everyone here knows what the company expects and how they fit in.
Well, we compete effectively today by living up to our expectations. We have to satisfy our customers, we have to satisfy our investors, we have to satisfy our employer, and when we satisfy them, then we satisfy ourselves by having job security. And increased productivity does this because it enables us to produce a tire at a competitive price.
Using identity, the employee knows his company. Using participation, the employee knows he can make a contribution. With equity, the customer, the investor, and the employee all benefit. This is Donnelly Corporation. They manufacture specialty mirrors for the automobile industry and produce glass products and coatings.
Usually when people come and ask us what type of Scanlon plan we have, they really are asking what kind of bonus formula do we have. That, in my view, is the improper way of looking at it.
I'd say that when our Scanlon plan worked the best at Donnelly were the 3 years that we didn't have any bonus, because it really taught us what the true value of Scanlon is. Bonus is sort of a wonderful indicator every month of how well you're doing against that, against your goals and against the sort of standard that you've set for yourself. But when Scanlon's really working, when people are working together, when they're having lots of ideas, and when you're having that kind of synergy of working together, that's where the real payoff is. The bonus is sort of a nice extra added thing to it.
Well, it's true that some people really believe that the Scanlon plan is only a bonus plan and it only works when you're paying a bonus. For example, they think that if the checks are rolling out on a monthly or quarterly or yearly basis, that that's when participation works the best of all.
Money only motivates people to a certain point, and after that, it's needs of self-esteem and needs to be recognized and need to contribute. And that's what the Scanlon plan really is about. If you don't have that philosophy behind it, then the bonus doesn't mean anything.
The system works at least as well, and I believe better, in bad times as well as in good times. For example, in 1980, Donnelly was facing a very severe automotive recession.
That's when we found out, are we really committed to Scanlon? Are we committed to working together, or are we not? And we found out that we were. We were able to, for example, reduce overhead by something like over $1 million in 3 months, totally participative effort. People sit down and work teams and say, what can we cut out? Who should we lay off? What kind of options do we have? All sorts of things, and there's no bonus for anybody.
We were able to come out of that automotive recession not as a weak and a battered company, but as a very strong company. In effect, we blasted right out of the recession.
Sure, you know, I really have to admire a company like Donnelly Mears because they went that 3 years without a bonus, and yet they did maintain the values of participation, and they maintained the process, and they recognized that they had a lot of problems. And some of those problems were industry problems, but they said, we can solve those problems too. And they did it. They had 500 employees, and they went all the way down to 250. But now they've come back up to 1,200 to 1,300 employees. They've come back like gangbusters.
Working together, the people at Donnelly were able to give their customer better equity by using their time to develop techniques to improve the quality and price of their products.
We have grown from roughly a $40 million company to over $120 million now. That's a compounded growth rate in excess of 20% per year. Our plans for the next 5 years called for continued growth at that level, where we expect to achieve during the next 5 years a level of sales in excess of $250 million.
In case you missed it, that spells equity for the investor. All the Scanlon principles must satisfy all three entities for it to be successful. If you find yourself just satisfying one of the three, you've missed it. Scanlon has no boundaries. Wherever the free marketplace exists, so too can these principles. This is Sudbury, Ontario, a strong union town. The struggle between union and management has been a fact of life that both sides have grown to take for granted. But that struggle has changed to cooperation at Nylon Casting.
We were at a difficult time within the industry. We were in trouble with our bankers, and the prospect of going broke was real. We knew we had to take another look at how we managed the company. If we didn't, there was an obvious and real possibility of the plant closing down in the next few years.
Peter came to me at the time that we were having problems both in industrial relations and financial problems at that time. So we put our heads together and tried to decide upon a course of action that would hopefully build a better foundation for industrial relations at Nylon and hopefully give us both a better chance at the future. During that whole investigative process that we were going through, we happened upon the Scanlon plan, and we decided that that was the plan that we would attempt to follow. It had a lot of pluses going for it, and the main one, of course, was being able to build that solid foundation and a better chance at the future for us. Now, mind you, we're not prepared, the unions aren't prepared at this point to bury the adversarial system. It's served us well over a period of many, many years, and will continue to serve us well in areas such as conflict resolution, contract negotiations, etc. But it is a new day out there, and unions and management have to face up to it and have to face the new challenges. And the Scanlon plan and participative management is one of the good ways that we can meet those challenges.
What started out as just a bonus package for the employees has grown into something more than anyone expected.
We're doing things now that I never thought we could ever do before. Like about 5 weeks ago, we hit a record for highest production for one shift, and in that same month, we hit 3 million pounds for 1 month, and that's something nobody's ever even come close to before. And even since we hit that 3 million for that 1 month, another crew comes on the next month and figures they're going to go after that 3 million, and they almost did it last month. So it's quite amazing what we could do when you put your mind to it.
That, of course, is just great stuff. It is the approach that we have to have in all of our people. And it puts the team together that will allow us to be competitive in this international market and truly be a survivor.
The investor, the customer, the employee, all three bring into focus the principles of the Scanlon plan. Identity. A person needs to know about his company before he can participate fully.
Without identity, without the Scanlon plan, without the opportunity to participate, people couldn't do that.
Participation, With the opportunity to participate comes the responsibility to bring to the company your best.
Like the oak tree, the strong leader, doesn't matter how skillful he is, stand alone, he's gonna crack. But with the support from his work team member, he's gonna stand strong to the stone.
Equity. With the benefit of earning more with what we invest of ourselves comes the accountability one has to everyone around him. That includes the customer and the investor.
With the Scanlon system, you really are, in a sense, an owner of the company. You share in the profitability of the company in the good times. You also share in the bad times. But you have a vested interest in the performance of the company as a whole.
The fourth principle is competence. The more competence one brings to the job, the better one can commit himself to the task at hand and to his company.
It's important that the employees have the opportunity and the responsibility to influence the decision-making process. Management still has to make the final decision, but only after using the inputs from all the employees. And employee participation is key.
What's in it for you? Listen, and you be the judge.
If you keep people aware always of what the economic reality is, you increase their literacy about what the situation that the company's facing in terms of competitive reality, in terms of what kind of standards the customers are expecting and all that kind of thing. You just give yourself an edge up in terms of meeting all the needs of your customers, in terms of beating the competition, because you have the collective kind of consciousness of all the people working together to make sure that those goals are satisfied. It gives you such an edge on your competition where just orders are given and then people have to choose to follow their orders instead of people figuring out what they have to do to meet a need. And that's a completely different approach, and it really does give you an enormous advantage over what your competition's trying to do.
Yes, we've been very fortunate. The office furniture industry has grown at an average annual compounded rate of more than 18% a year. And during that same period of time, the past 10 years, we've been able to grow at 26.5%. But that's history, and now we have to plan for the future, which we know is going to be a lot more competitive than the past. And the one thing we have going for us is the Scanlon method, because with the Scanlon method, we can continue to earn and to share productivity gains with our customers, our employee owners, and our investors.
Participation has made my job a lot more fun, particularly knowing that our people are working to a common goal. We would be delighted to have all of our customers visit our plant and talk to all of our people. We simply would not have considered this 5 years ago.
We've seen a marked change in the attitudes of both the employees and management. We have employees now, are members of our local union. They're proud to say that they work at Neon. That never happened before. It just didn't happen. I've seen management, the management attitude towards employees. There's a very useful and good dialogue going on between the managers and the supervisors, lead hands, and employees. Things that we just didn't see 6 or 7 years ago. It's been beneficial all around, I think, and people have a sense of belonging, of participating, and more importantly, of contributing to the overall success of Neon, which of course they're doing, each and every one of them. So it's a good feeling, and it's good to be part of it.
Job security. The company's willing to invest millions of dollars into the company, and everybody can see that. As long as we work together, everything should run smooth.
2/3 of my budget is people. Not machines, not laboratories, but people. That means the investor is investing in people, not equipment. And they're likely to get the best return from the best efforts of people. If you look around the world, you'll find that the excellent companies use their people excellently. And you'll find that they use them through a process that we recognize as being participative. There are many recipes for participation, and it's used worldwide. However, Scanlon, which is our interpretation and our code and our religion, if you like, is as good a recipe as can be applied. Certainly, if I was to leave Donnelly, if I was to set up on my own, I would very seriously consider attempting to apply these principles. I say attempt because they are difficult to apply. They are difficult to work with. However, I believe they are worthwhile, and I would invest my own self and finance and whatever in such an enterprise. I would use it.
Just 4 principles: identity, participation, equity, and competence. A dream of a union laborer almost half a century ago. Enterprise for every man. A lot has changed during that time. The world has become far more complicated. What was once a marketplace dominated by the Western world has now transformed into global competition. Now more than ever, companies must better serve the customer, the investor, and the employee.